to Money Money Money, your weekly personal finance date with me, Surabhi Upadhyay. The insurance regulator has tweaked some rules pertaining to life insurance products. These changes include longer revival periods for lapsed policies, enhanced surrender value for non-linked insurance products, and also more flexibility with respect to withdrawal of your money when it comes to pension plans. These are just some of the changes. There are several others, and today we're going to be talking about all of these moves and their impact on policyholders. My guests are V. Vishwanand, Deputy MD at Max Life Insurance, Rahul Mohta, COO of Ideal Insurance, and financial planning expert Harshvardhan Rungta. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the show. I must admit at the onset, insurance is not an easy subject, especially when there is a regulatory change involved. So I just want to start with the basics. Let's get some opening thoughts in. Mr. Vishwanand, of course, you come from the product manufacturer side. When you look at a lot of these tweaks, what do they essentially mean for policy buyers?
I see 5 big changes which are being ushered in through these regulations. Number 1 is better retention and revival options which are being offered to policyholders, because we've experienced that nearly 2/3 of our customers who exit their policies before maturity end up doing so for one reason, which is their own personal financial situation. So they're looking for options of revival, later options to stay, and then to get back and revive their own policies without letting it lapse or surrender. So that's number 1. Number 2 is higher guaranteed surrender values, or rather earlier guaranteed surrender values, which was earlier being paid from the 3rd year onwards, now is going to be paid from the 2nd year onwards, which means that there is more incentive for insurers to retain their policyholders early on and to get them to stay rather than let them go. Number 3 is flexibility. Very innovative solutions being offered by the regulations now, which is after the 5-year lock-in typically for a ULIP plan, and for that matter even in a traditional plan after 5 years, the regulator allows for a premium reduction of up to 50% of the initially contracted premium, and to continue to stay with the policy. So that's the flexibility angle. Besides this, there are 2 other aspects which is very pertinent to India. One is protection and 2 is retirement. So both these have got a fillip. On protection, interestingly, the policy term has been now reduced, which means that essentially a policy term can now be issued of a minimum of 1 month itself. So you can have event-based insurance, you can have topical insurance, you can have e-commerce based insurance, rather than having a 5-year contractual term through individual policies or a 1-year contractual term for protection plans.
Okay.
Retirement has also got a lot of fillip, with open market opportunities now coming in.
Vishwanand, I must come in over there, because let's face it, these are really complicated things. I mean, for people who are not very well versed with insurance, I mean, there's a lot of sort of complex terms out there between linked, non-linked, traditional, risk, etc. So let's just take it step by step to make it easier for our viewers to understand. Let's actually just make it very simple and start with some of the basic changes that are going to be impacting, let's say, ULIPs. So if I talk about, the minimum sum assured first and foremost, because that's a change that seems to have been coming in. Now, some of the policies at least will no longer have to give you 10 times the premium paid. The minimum has been reduced to 7 times. So Rahul, let's take opening thoughts with you. Explain this to us. What policies will be impacted? This rule will apply on what policies, and what does it mean for us?
So primarily, prior to this rule coming into place, you have to select a minimum of 10 times of the premium value as the sum insured. So that was the minimum what you can maximum take any amount, but the minimum was 10 times. What they have done is they have reduced it to 7 times. Primarily is to decrease the insurance cost and make it more of a financial investment product. So if your sum insured goes down, your mortality charges goes down, your investment portion goes up, so it becomes more of an investment product. So people who look to insurance as an investment product can now look into this product more as an investment option. But the flip side is that the Income Tax Act still allow you to take the tax benefit on the maturity amount under section 10(10)(d) only if the minimum sum insured is 10 times. The flip side again remains that if you take it 7 times, you don't get the tax benefit tax benefit at the time of maturity of the policy. So
Okay.
net that's the
Okay, so let me also get the product manufacturer's take on this. So Shunan, on this particular aspect, the minimum sum assured being reduced from 10 times to 7 times. I mean, first thought that comes to mind is that why should I get lesser sum assured? Because the whole idea of insurance should be to get proper and adequate cover. What kind of products will be impacted? Does this only apply to ULIPs? Does it apply to traditional plans? And what is your take on it?
This applies to all product forms in the individual category. Having said that, the 7 times cover multiple already exists in the current regulations above age 45. However, most insurers do not offer that option, knowing very well that the 10(10)(d) benefits of the maturity of the policy will now be taxed. Hence, all of us and most insurers have opted for only the 10 times cover multiple, despite the fact that today regulations do allow you for a 7 times cover multiple. So the new regulations only provide you that flexibility that even for ages below 45, you could potentially have a 7 times cover multiple. However, until the Income Tax Act were to change from a 10 times cover multiple to something lower such as 7 times, it is unlikely that many insurers would provide this option. And obviously there could be misguidance provided to customers in case this is not very explicitly shared. So to be on the safer side, I suppose not many insurers would take this option up of reducing their cover multiple from 10 times to 7 times.
Okay, got it. Harsh, you've been listening to some of the comments already. Initial thoughts?
Well, in simple terms, I mean, we're talking about products which are pure risk policies, which are your term plans. So as a means of financial planning, and if you really want insurance in the true sense, you need to buy term plans. Now the question, all this is essentially, revolving around the fact that, investments in insurance needs to be promoted. Now, in that context, we're talking about reducing the sum insured to 7 times. Now, as we've already heard that there is an option for people who are aged 45 and above, but insurance companies do not offer it because it does not match with the Income Tax Act, wherein they say that if your policy is not 10 times of annual premium, then you do not get the section 10(10)(d) benefit, which is all your maturity proceeds being tax exempt.
Sure.
So this option may be even introduced, but it will be an option. It will not be that all policies will compulsory come down to that level.
Okay, all right. The other sort of major changes that have come through, and Shwanand, you were just referring to that, is now the option of paying 5 years premium upfront. Now just explain this to us, and then of course the cost apparently reduces for the next 5 years. Again, what products is this valid on? Does it even make sense? And you were talking about term plans which can even have like sort of a 1 month duration, etc. So what kind of product regime should we expect?
No, there is no such option of having to pay all your premiums upfront. Essentially that will become a single premium product which is already there. That form exists in the sector now. The flexibility that is being offered today on a protection plan is as follows. Currently for an individual protection plan, a term plan, the minimum policy term has to be for 5 years. Now that can be reduced potentially to 1 month. Similarly, in a group plan, the minimum group term life cover has to be for 1 year. Now that can even be up to a minimum of 1 month. So this could actually spur some innovation, and taken along with the regulatory sandbox approach that the regulator has just announced, chances of some innovative and interesting products coming out could be a reality, especially through affinity programs.
Okay, so when you say there could be new products, are we talking on the term side? Are we talking traditional products?
On the term side.
Okay.
Protection side, pure protection.
Okay, so maybe we'll see some more product innovation on the term side. Harsh, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, if you're looking at a product which has a minimum tenure of even 1 month, so in case you have certain requirements, when you say suppose you're traveling overseas for a holiday or for work, and you believe that you need an enhanced sum insured only for that period, well, you can also now buy a policy for even only just about 3 months. Or 6 months for that matter. So this is a great flexibility, not that you're supposed to buy it for that period, just in case you have an additional requirement, because you believe there's an enhanced risk or you need to provide that protection to your family, then of course you can buy into a policy with a minimum tenure of even 1 month for that matter.
Okay, so some more options perhaps will come through for policy holders. We need to take a break, but on the other side, more changes, and actually very positive changes if you're looking at pension plans, because there's flexibility with respect to the withdrawals. We'll discuss this on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching Money, 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 and this week we are discussing a lot of the changes that the insurance regulator has ushered in on life insurance products. Now, one of these changes pertains with pension plans, because what the regulator has said is that now it would be possible to commute or to basically withdraw 60% of your corpus from this product, putting it at par with the NPS. Rahul, let me start with you first. What are the finer aspects of some of these changes with respect to pension plans?
So as you have rightly mentioned, they want to bring it close to the NPS. Previously you were allowed to withdraw only 25% of the corpus, which they have taken it up to 60%. Again, the caveat being, if you withdraw 60%, the 20% what you withdraw is tax free, but the remaining amount is taxable, so we have to be careful about that. The best part which has come is selection of annuity. So previously when you take a pension plan and then you scout for annuity at the end of the policy, you were forced to take it from the insurer from which you have bought the pension plan. Now this regulation brings in a flexibility wherein you can go in to the open market and buy the annuity plans at the best rate possible. So this is very friendly to a customer and can have some benefits of customer not getting stuck with the insurer with whom he has bought the pension plan. So it's a good option for the customers who have this pension plan to use it.
Okay, Vishwanand, from the insurer's side, what does this mean? More competition in this product, pension plans, as we speak?
I would say that the straight-jacketed approach followed in pension plans for the last few years has now been a little relaxed. So through this open market option where 50% of your corpus could be an annuity could be purchased from an insurer who's somebody else rather than the insurer to whom you have accumulated the pension corpus. So that's one change. And similarly, the other change of partial withdrawals coming in when there are critical life events such as critical illness or purchase of a home, just like you would do with your EPFO fund or with your NPS. So that parity is there, and along with the other flexibilities. Now the point is that I however do not see this market growing significantly yet, because while the pension plan has now become on par with that of the NPS, it still suffers from lack of tax incentives which an NPS kind of product form has. Okay. A customer is not getting incentivized adequately to purchase a pension plan from a life insurance company, though actually the product form is very similar to that of NPS in terms of flexibilities. So I think that parity again is now the ball is moved on to the government's court to take action on this particular aspect and introduce parity there as well. Otherwise, customers might not be incentivized for this extra lock-in into a pension plan, though the flexibilities are there compared to that of an NPS. Okay,
Harsh, your thoughts on this? I mean, I take your point. Yes, you don't have the additional 50,000, ATCCD deduction that's available on, further contribution to the NPS. But overall pension plans, considering the tax treatment that they get today, and with this enhanced flexibility, do they make sense in a personal finance portfolio?
Well, not exactly, because there's a lot to be done when you talk about annuities. So let's just understand what we are all talking about. So say I am a person who is wishing to buy an annuity plan at my age of say 35, 40, 30, whatever age.
And that's the time you typically want to start thinking, planning for retirement. And you're looking at the options before you, whether it's mutual funds or NPS or what the pension or what the insurance industry has to offer.
So let's just understand this annuity as an option or an NPS as an option. So now, right now we're talking about only annuity from insurance companies. So first is a deferred annuity plan. The period in which I'm contributing into this investment in this plan is called a deferred annuity. So what I'm doing right now is I'm contributing and collecting money. So in that period from say age 30 to age 60 is a deferred annuity plan in which I am investing. Now in between this 30 to 60 years, if I wished earlier to withdraw money, I was not allowed to withdraw.
Okay.
In NPS, I'm allowed to withdraw in critical life instances.
But now you will, because they've offered the flexibility
Now-
of child's marriage, education, illness, etc.
Absolutely. So now the same feature has been incorporated in an annuity plan by an insurance company. The second element is at the time when I reach my maturity, a vesting date as it is called in terms of insurance policies. When I reach my age of vesting, that is age 60 for this matter, in NPS I'm allowed to withdraw 60% of the accumulated corpus.
Which now you can also do for this pension plan.
Correct. So what was there earlier was that I was allowed to withdraw only 1/3. So about 33% was allowed to be withdrawn.
Okay.
The balance amount, what is left after withdrawal, after commuting as it is called, I'm mandatorily required to buy an immediate annuity plan, the next stage of pension, which is now when you'll start getting money back from the insurance company. Now I was compulsorily required to buy that from the same company,
insurance company.
in which I was having my deferred annuity plan.
Yeah.
In case of NPS, after at vesting, then I have to, whatever is left, the 40% that is left, I have to compulsorily transfer it to any licensed insurance company. So anyways, my money at the time of immediate annuity, when I was getting money back, was coming into the insurance companies. Because NPS doesn't manage post commuting phase. Now, in terms of insurance companies, I am allowed to withdraw 60%. The balance 40%, I have to split it. I'm getting an option to split it, which means a maximum 50%
Yeah.
of the balance amount. I'm allowed to go to another insurance company and say, I wish to take annuity from you.
So basically it's like 60-20-20. 60% you can withdraw, 20% you have to buy annuity from the same insurer, 20% you can buy annuity from any other insurer.
So I fail to understand why would you need to do that. And if you allow a 40%, say whatever is left with,
Let a person take annuity from anyone.
exactly,
with the balance
why would you
40%.
want to even restrict him to say that you are allowed to go 50%? The question is, at my retirement, I'm standing with 40% of my own money.
Yeah.
I asked the same insurance company whom I've trusted my money for the deferred annuity period, what are you going to give me with this 40% that I give to you? He says, I will give you say probably 5,000 a month. I go to another insurance company, I say I have this corpus with this
Yeah.
40%, how much are you wanting
Yeah.
to give me? That
Yeah.
guy says, I'll give you 6,000 a month.
Sure.
Now I don't even have a choice to move my entire money to the new fellow.
But okay, overall, what is the take? And to sum it up in one line, what is the take? Will you be able to look at pension plans now in better detail?
I would still go for an NPS.
You would still go for an NPS.
What is
Okay.
what is the reason for me to then stick to an annuity policy of an insurance company when the costs are even higher?
Okay, we'll take a quick break on that note. On the other side, that's all about pension plans, but on the other side, there are certain changes with respect to reviving your policy, with respect to surrender values. We discuss that when we come back. Welcome back. You're watching Money, 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 and this week we're discussing a lot of the changes that the insurance regulator has ushered in for life insurance policies. Now we talk about certain changes with respect to surrender values of your policy and what happens when your policy lapses. Vishwanan, just help us jog our memory and tell us about these changes and how they impact us.
So the surrender value of the policies earlier for policy term more than 10 years was mandated by the regulator to begin from the third year onwards, the guaranteed surrender value, which was 30% of the premiums paid. Now that has been advanced by 1 year. So it begins from the second year onwards. So which means that an exiting policyholder who is exiting his contract after the second year would actually end up getting 30% of the premiums paid and would cost the insurance company, and that's minimum guaranteed. So the insurance company would be hurt if they were to see their customers go, which means that the incentive for the insurance companies to go and retain their customers is higher, number one. Number two is that the revival, and I think this particular aspect is perhaps the largest impact of these regulations across companies and policyholders in the country, which is the revival period. The revival period was 2 years only, which means that if you lapse your policy, you don't pay your premiums on time, you have a 1 month grace period and then it goes into a lapse mode. You are allowed a period of total 2 years to pay back the premiums due and to revive your policy back. It's almost reinstating your policy. That period we found many customers coming back to us saying that they wanted a longer period. In fact, a company like ours, our number of loans and liquidity options has been doubling year on year.
Sure.
Which means that people are looking for more options to fund their premiums, but they want more time. So that has been increased from 2 years to 5 years in a traditional policy, and from 2 years to 3 years in a unit-linked plan.
Okay, got it.
So these are very interesting options. We expect the persistency and the overall retention of the sector to increase by at least 1 to 2% across the board because of this one single change.
Okay, that would be, of course, a major change. It will impact the persistency ratios and the health of the insurance sector as well. Final thoughts, gentlemen, very quickly. Last word, about 30 seconds each. As Vishwanand said that, perhaps revival is one of the biggest aspects of these regulatory changes. Rahul, your final take, and what's the advice that you'd give out to people now that these new regulations kick in?
See, this is a correct step by the regulator as far as the financial inclusiveness is concerned. They have looked around to products like mutual funds, NPS, bank FDs, and try to make sure insurance become more customer friendly. See, now we are going to go to the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities because of the availability of technology and all. They need to simplify product. They need to make it more user friendly. So it's a correct step in the right direction. But we should not forget the essence of insurance. The essence of insurance is long-term protection. So if you give options to people to discontinue their policies and withdrawal, have minimum guarantee sum insured and all, that might increase mis-selling as it was happening in ULIP some 5-10 years back, which was curbed. So we have to take it very carefully, and again the role of distribution becomes very important. How transparently and how intelligently we sell the products will be the key going forward. So the manufacturer, the distributor and the financial advisors need to work towards customer benefit for the long-term revival of the life insurance industry.
I think that's very well put. Distribution and right selling is really the key. Last 10-second take with you, Harsh.
Well, I like the fact that the regulator is recognizing the fact that if a policyholder is unable to pay his premiums beyond 2 years, there should be some money given back to him. So the question is, earlier it was 3 years and above. If you haven't paid your premiums for 3 years, you do not get back anything, which was, I think, very harsh on the policyholder. Now, if you paid for 2 years and beyond, you're eligible to receive some money back in the form of 30% of what you paid as a guaranteed. So invariably, you will get only 30%. And so I think, that's a good step, respecting the sentiments of the policyholder and his difficulties in continuing with the policy for whatever reasons. So if there is some money being given back, it's nice. You're also increasing the revival period, which is good again, so that if a policyholder wants to come back after 2 years and wishes to revive back and get back onto the policy, he is able to do
At
so.
least that window is open. Yeah. All right, so some positive changes definitely coming in with these regulations. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for being with us and helping us demystify, decode these complex set of new rules that have kicked in. Hopefully, there'll be more flexibility and benefits for the customer. Many thanks for joining in. That's it on this week's edition of Money. We'll see you again next week.